Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have A-list media solutions expert Melissa Guenette. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I'm so excited to learn from you about how to get in the good media and how to get on stages because I know you actually help your clients get on stages as well. But first, how did you get into this business?
So I got into this business by accident. I used to own a different marketing and PR firm that I had for 13 years, and I sold it at the end of the pandemic. And I had a non-compete for a few years. And afterwards, I had a few other clients reach out to me and ask me if I was thinking about coming back. And eventually, after thinking it through, I decided that yes, I'd really love to come back. A lot has changed since then. So it's been really nice to see how media, social media, and public relations has changed over the last few years.
How has it changed?
It's changed quite a bit. So it used to be easier to have deliverables on the social media. The algorithms have changed significantly. The media's focus has really shifted over the last few years. They no longer enjoy doing pieces on specific individuals. They prefer to touch on broader topics that really touch the general public. And they really have focused a lot more on technology, on using AI, and the elections, immigration, things like that, that are really topical subjects that they didn't used to talk about nearly as much in the past.
Interesting. And you're also in the fashion styling business. You're a fashion stylist?
Well, you can look good while you do it.
Yeah.
So I love being a fashion stylist. That was one of the favorite parts of my job is styling people. As a personal brand manager, it's a really great to make sure that when you are stepping on stage or you're representing yourself, that you have the best look to go with it. That when people see you, they instantly associate you with your profession. So that's something I've really enjoyed, whether it is the colors, whether it's dressing for your body, how to dress on stage and on camera is completely different than how you would normally dress to the office. There's different silhouettes that you really want to focus on so that you're putting your best foot forward when people are seeing you.
How would you coach my clients who are speaking on stages and they're wondering what's the best thing for me to wear? Maybe they're wearing a suit because they think that's what they should wear, or they're wearing, I don't know. I don't know what women's go-to choices are for the stage, but how would you go about consulting someone on what they should wear, particularly speakers speaking on stage?
The best thing to do is have an identifier. So if people can't dress as you for Halloween, then you technically don't have an individual style. So you want something that is easily identifiable. It could be a bright color glasses. It could be a specific color tie. It could be wacky bow ties, really fun patterns. You want to look like you own the company, that you don't work at the company.
Oh,
Another
wow.
thing I often recommend for people is match it to your brand. So let's just say you wrote a book and your book is lime green, then maybe you should have a lime green identifier on you so that everything that you do really coincides with the image of your book. Not to mention all the photos you're going to be taking before and afterwards with people who have your book in hand. You want to make sure that those photos look great and that all of the color schemes really work together.
Wow. I love this. I wrote this down. Look like you own the company, but not like you work at the company. So you're
There's a difference.
representing, say again?
There's a big difference. You can tell right away usually who owns the company versus who works at the company simply based on how they're dressed.
Tell me more.
So somebody who owns the company tends to be slightly more flamboyant. They tend to be, you have to be a little bit crazy to own your own business. You really do. It takes a certain drive, a certain sort of charisma that generally takes place. And you'll see that represented in people's clothes. So they're less concerned about fitting into the corporate mold with their fashion more than they are about expressing themselves professionally.
Fascinating. It totally makes sense. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, does the flamboyant person become the business owner, or does the business owner become the flamboyant person?
I think it's a bit of both. I think because you were already very charismatic, you were really driven, you started the business to begin with. I think that's why people work with you. It's just
Hmm.
once you put yourself in a position that you are the elite, you are the expert in your field, you become a little bit more relaxed and you get to dress in ways that truly make you happy. You're a little bit more ahead of the curve because at this point, you can generally hire somebody like me to make sure that everything is really on point. And you're often going to a lot of different places as opposed to just the office. So you might be going to networking events, you might be traveling for work at a conference. And that those are all different outfits that you'd have to wear throughout the day. And then you're entertaining people at lunch and dinner. So you really want things that are transitional.
Hmm. Transitional means works in multiple locations.
Works in multiple locations, but also multiple countries. So I
Oh.
travel a lot for work. So I could start my morning here in Ottawa having a few meetings. And then by dinner or the evening, I could be in Miami entertaining a client. I could be in New York for a conference or something that might be come up. So I need my clothes to also fit in those two markets as well. I don't have time to change my outfit 8 times a day. So I really want to make sure that what I'm wearing is easily transitionable through those different avenues.
I once saw an advertisement for a suit that's made out of like athletic material that's like wicking the sweat and stretching in four ways, and you could do gymnastics and yoga in your suit. And I'm like, this is the ultimate transitional, go straight from yoga class to stage in the boardroom in the same suit.
Yeah, those suits are great because they don't wrinkle on a plane, which is really, really nice. However, unless you are representing an athletic company, I'd want to stick with something a little bit more structured.
More structured, say less. Got it. Cool. Let's talk about getting in the media. Um, Tell me about why it's so important for business owners to be in media. And can you tell me the difference between like a really good media placement and this is probably a waste of your time, a media placement?
So there's a few different elements to put there. So media is still one of the best forms to validate what it is that you do. So it really is an indicator that yes, you are qualified, you are a good business leader if you end up in traditional media. People still love television, they love magazines, they love newspapers. And for some reason, it sort of adds a level of safety to hiring your company versus hiring an unknown company because I feel like I have more information. Your expertise is validated by those media outlets. An example of a really good media placement is something that's earned media. So there's earned media and bought media. They're two very different things. Earned media is when someone is genuinely interested in what you're doing and they're writing an article about it. Earned media is when we're making a list of 30 under 30 and they've selected you to be on those lists. Those are things that are called earned media. Then you have a bought media, which is exactly how it sounds. That's just when you're buying your media placement, your news placement, things along those lines. You're buying advertisements in papers and magazines for your brand. Both are great because you'll see somebody say featured in Forbes. There's featured in Forbes, and then there's a bought to be in Forbes. Two very, very different avenues. And I think at this point, everyone is now conditioned enough to understand the difference. So I can tell the difference when I see a product that was just saying featured in Forbes versus one that Forbes actually chose to put on their list of holiday products to buy.
Well, interesting you say that because it was just yesterday that I saw an entrepreneur I really admire and respect have this beautiful, what looked like a cover magazine with Forbes at the top, and it was an Instagram carousel that was a really well done lead magnet or funnel for her to get people to reply with the words so she can send them the thing. And she tagged Forbes. And my first thought was like, okay, is this AI? Is this Canva? Is this Forbes? Is this I paid to be in Forbes? Or is this Forbes discovered my friend and put them on the cover of their magazine? And yeah, so I went through those um, thoughts. How can you tell the difference?
You can usually tell a difference if they choose to write a lengthy article afterwards. So if Forbes is investing a lot of money into you, that means they truly believe that their readers are going to be interested in what you have to say or the thing that you're offering. If
Uh-huh.
it is really just a photo, 2 words underneath your name, generally they are either considered filler, which there's nothing wrong with being filler. Sometimes people in the media just need to fill up a spot.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It's great
Yeah.
to be available for those moments. But you can usually tell where you're placed in the magazine, where you're placed on their website. Do they think this is a lead generator or are they just taking advertising dollars?
Okay. And if a business owner asks you, Melissa, is it worth it for me to throw some money into getting featured in Forbes? How would you answer that question?
It entirely depends on your business goals. So each entrepreneur has different business goals and who they want to associate themselves and their business with. Some businesses are honestly just looking for the clout. And if you're looking for clout, then yes, absolutely pay the money to be featured in Forbes. It is an amazing editorial. They do a fantastic job. There's nothing wrong with paying for advertising. That's why that entire industry exists. If you are looking for more respect, if you're really looking to become somebody that Forbes would eventually want to feature, then I wouldn't pay for it. I would really just do everything in my power to build up my brand and escalate the services that I offer so that Forbes is interesting then in featuring me. Now, in doing so, you can pitch Forbes, like you can let them know you exist. You can put yourself on their radar. I've seen people in the media and people who work behind the scenes, and they get a million pitches a day. They do very well sort them away. They organize them. You should see how well organized their emails and everything are. Should one day a topic arise and they're like, oh, yes, I remember this amazing pitch that somebody once had sent to me, they'll go back to it. And it could be a year, it could be 2 years. Well, they'll give you a call and ask for a quote or decide to feature you themselves.
Got it. Got it. So we can pitch, which leads to earned media. And earned by definition is they're coming to you for content, or they're coming to,
Exactly.
yeah. Bot means you're paying for placement.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. Like both of them have their place in the industry. It really just depends on what your personal goals are or your company goals are.
Yeah. As you were describing the difference, I remember this feeling I have sometimes. Let's say I'm flipping through a magazine, thinking I'm reading articles written by this magazine, and I'm reading this article that makes some product sound really amazing. And then at the bottom, in the little type, it just says, this is a paid placement or this is an advertise. And the feeling that changes for me is like, oh, well, I don't know if I should even trust anything I just read because obviously they have an agenda to get me to buy the thing.
Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with, again, putting your product out there, getting people to read about it, getting people to know about it, because you probably wouldn't have known about this product had you not read it in that magazine. However, it's up to you as a reader to do your due diligence, to check reviews, ask questions, and then you'll be able to understand that product a little bit more. Maybe it'll fit it, be something that you want to buy or a service you want to use. But I think it's up to individuals to differentiate between the two. And you did a good job by reading the little fine print at the bottom.
Proud of myself.
Yeah.
I am emceeing an event soon um, that sells stage time for $50,000 for an hour. I think it's $30,000 for 30 minutes and all the way down to 3 minutes. And these companies, this thing sells out because that stage time is valuable. That audience is valuable to those people. And I don't advertise to the audience how much they've paid to be on the stage, but it's also no secret. Like, they're buying the booth, they're getting the stage time. I don't think it's any secret. Um, but in my mind, there is also that kind of feeling of like when I read a real article versus when I see an advertisement, like a real speaker is like paid to be there because their information is so valuable, whereas other people's they're paying to get on the stage because they have something to gain from that audience. And I'm curious, what are your insights and what are your experiences with getting your clients on stage either through an earned keynote spot, which is a pitch and maybe they're even paid to speak, versus getting your clients a strategic stage that you might end up paying for, the client might end up paying for, And if you have any experience with that.
So I think it depends on your own personal level of experience. I think there's nothing wrong with starting out somewhere, starting on a stage that you've paid to be on, you've practiced your speech, you've gone out there. As long as you're adding value to the people who are listening to you speak, it's a great starting point. As long as you're also capitalizing on it, making sure that all the photos are getting taken, that you're really having an offer to the members of the crowd so that you can funnel those people into your business one way or another. I think it can be a really great starting point. I wouldn't recommend doing it more than 2 or 3 times. Once you have all of this content, you've developed yourself on stage, that's when I would take that content, I would put it into an amazing media kit or pitch deck, and I would start pitching that again with a price tag to it to other places is so that you can really get earned media, earned placements. Also, no, but it's not sustainable to constantly pay to be on stage. You want to be able to get paid to be on stage because it takes a day, a two, sometimes 3 days out of your life. If you're traveling to a conference, you got to set everything
Yeah.
with the speaker, there's rehearsals, there's setting up the lights and making sure that all of the prompts and everything are working. So it's not sustainable. You do want people to pay you for your value. However, there's nothing wrong with starting from the bottom and working your way up. We all need to start somewhere. Not everyone is a natural born speaker. Some people want to refine their keynote, and you don't feel as bad about it when you're the one paying to be on stage versus if somebody else paying you thousands of dollars to be on that stage. So if you make a little mistake or something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. And most of the time, the crowd doesn't even notice. Only you notice your errors.
Great insights. You just gave a whole heck of a lot of valuable insights on that, which I'm going to repeat here. It's okay to pay to be on the stage as long as you're adding value to the audience. So you don't just make it like a pitch, you want to make it valuable for the audience. Make sure you get photos and videos. Make an offer to the audience. Use the content after one or two or three to create a pitch deck and go out and win some stages and get paid to do some stages using the content. And it's a great place to practice and improve. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah. I will add one thing. You said it's not sustainable to go keep paying for stages. And what I will add is it is when you're certain that you're getting a multiple positive ROI every event. Either because you're closing sales consistently or you just know every time I invest $10,000 to speak on a stage, I make $100,000.
And that's amazing for some people. Like, that's absolutely
Yeah. Yeah.
fantastic. There's an
Yeah.
exception to every rule, really, at the end of the day. As
Yeah.
long as you're finding that it is providing you value, you can continue
Yeah.
to do something. When it no longer serves you, that's when I would look into trying to grow or pivot or expand your reach.
Yeah. So we've talked about getting into media, earned media and paid media. We've talked about getting on stages, earned stages and paid stages. Are you writing a book now?
I've been asked to write a book a few times, and yes, I actually have signed a book deal with Lucky Book Publishing, so I'm really excited to do that. If I really started and put all of this together, there's a rough outline, but it's a work in progress. As you can imagine, I'm a very busy running my company at the moment,
Yeah.
and I would love to kind of put that information out there and someday it is coming. It is in the funnel. I promised her I'd have it ready for her by the fall.
Okay, good.
We're working on
Do
it.
you have a clear idea about what you want it to be about?
So, as an entrepreneur, I've owned a few businesses, and I had one for 13 years that I absolutely loved. It wasn't until the end of the pandemic that I ended up selling it. And I in speaking to a lot of people, realize that a lot of entrepreneurs make the same mistakes when we're starting out. There's not really a specific roadmap. So I'm thinking about writing the book about all the mistakes that I did in business. in a fun, quibby, positive way that really just so that you can learn from my experience and you don't have to make those mistakes yourself, already putting you a decade ahead of the curve than somebody who hadn't read the book would be. Or if you have to make all of those mistakes
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a great format. Here's the mistake, here's the lesson. Here's the mistake, here's the lesson. Or maybe here's the mistake, here's the lesson. Here's what you could do instead.
And one thing I'm a big believer on is owning your lessons.
Hmm.
Like, you have to own your mistakes because those are your best lessons. Those are your mini university degrees that you get to put in your back pocket that other people haven't had a chance to learn. So I really want to be able to share those little mini degrees with everybody so that they have those lessons in the way that I learned them and they can avoid making those same mistakes.
Cool. Lessons learned from mistakes in business. We've covered a lot. We've covered fashion, we've covered media, how media's changed, we've covered stage. Is there anything else you'd like to expand on?
Honestly, I just hope that people feel comfortable enough if you ever have any questions that they can reach out to me on socials. I think you're going to be putting them below somewhere. Or you can just email me or reach out to my company, A-List Media Solutions, and we'll be able to assist in ways in any way possible. We really hope that we can get people as much media exposure as possible so that their businesses succeed, so that people really get to see all of the things that you have to offer the world.
Fantastic. And just in case they're listening somewhere that there's not the links, what's the best website for you?
That would be alistmediasolutions.com is the
All
best
right.
website to reach me at.
Thank you, Melissa Guenette, A-List Media Solutions, forthcoming author, fashion stylist, media placer and buyer, stage placer and buyer, and all around brilliant entrepreneur, fellow Canadian in Ottawa. Thank you for being on the Expert Speaker Podcast.
Thank you, Majeed, so much for having me. I really appreciate it.